What if the ultimate strategic chess move unfolded right before our eyes? Imagine one of the world's most pragmatic and strategically brilliant city-states, Singapore, making an offer so compelling, so audacious, that China, a rising global superpower, couldn't refuse. This isn't just a thought experiment. It's a deep dive into a hypothetical scenario that, if it were to become reality, would send seismic tremors through the global geopolitical landscape. We're talking about a move that could redefine trade, security, and power in the 21st century. Get ready to explore. China accepts Singapore's offer. What happens next? You won't want to miss a single second. To comprehend the monumental impact of China accepting Singapore's offer, we must first dissect what that offer could possibly entail. Singapore, despite its small size, wields disproportionate influence due to its strategic location, economic prowess, and diplomatic acumen. What could it bring to the table that would be irresistible to Beijing? Firstly, consider strategic logistical and maritime access. Singapore is the world's second busiest port by tonnage, a crucial global transshipment hub, and sits at the choke point of the Strait of Malacca, through which a significant portion of global trade, including China's vital energy and raw material imports, passes. Singapore could offer China unprecedented, formalized access or preferential treatment within its world-class port facilities. Dedicated berths, faster turnaround times, or even exclusive logistical zones for Chinese state-owned enterprises, SOEs. Intelligence sharing, joint patrols, though highly sensitive, or coordination on anti-piracy efforts along the strait, benefiting China's maritime trade security. Singapore's advanced port automation and digital logistics systems could be shared or jointly developed, enhancing China's own port capabilities. Secondly, Singapore's offer could be profoundly economic and financial. Singapore is a leading global financial center, a hub for foreign direct investment, and boasts a robust legal. Singapore could position itself as the primary offshore RMB clearinghouse or a key conduit for Chinese outbound investment into ASEAN, leveraging its expertise in regional market access. Singapore's strong intellectual property protection and vibrant innovation ecosystem could be offered as a base for Chinese tech companies seeking to internationalize or for joint research and development in cutting-edge fields like AI, biotech, or fintech. Facilitating the flow of skilled labor, joint educational programs, or even the establishment of Chinese university branches in Singapore, capitalizing on Singapore's multicultural and multilingual environment. Thirdly, the offer could tap into Singapore's diplomatic and geopolitical influence. Singapore is renowned for its neutral foreign policy, its ability to engage with all major powers, and its deep understanding of regional dynamics. Singapore could offer to mediate or facilitate China's relations with other ASEAN member states, particularly those with concerns about China's regional assertiveness. This would be invaluable for China's regional diplomacy. Singapore could subtly, or even overtly, align with China on certain non-controversial international issues, lending its respected voice to China's positions in multilateral organizations. Singapore's highly efficient governance model, urban planning, and technological integration, e.g., Smart Nation initiatives, could be offered as a template or partnership opportunity for China's own urban development goals. Finally, the offer is likely a nuanced, multifaceted package, appealing to China's diverse strategic needs. It wouldn't be a simple alliance in the traditional sense, but rather a profound deepening of strategic partnership, built on mutual benefit. Singapore's calculus would be one of enhancing its own security and prosperity by aligning more closely with a rising power, while maintaining its strategic autonomy where possible. This move would signal a significant recalibration of Singapore's delicate balancing act. Now, let's pivot and explore why China, a nation with immense global ambitions, would find Singapore's hypothetical offer so compelling that it would accept, potentially triggering a complete reordering of regional and global power. What does Singapore offer that aligns so perfectly with Beijing's overarching strategic objectives? Firstly, and perhaps most critically, is energy security and the Malacca dilemma. For decades, Chinese strategists have been acutely aware of their vulnerability regarding the Strait of Malacca. Approximately 80% of China's oil imports and a vast amount of its trade pass through this narrow waterway. Any disruption, whether from conflict, piracy, or political instability, poses an existential threat to China's economy and national security. Singapore's formalized offer would directly address this vulnerability. Preferential access or a deep partnership with the Straits Guardian would significantly enhance China's energy and trade security, reducing the perceived risk of a naval blockade or disruption by rival powers. This is a strategic asset of immeasurable value. While not a formal military base, enhanced access to Singapore's port facilities could provide crucial logistical support for the People's Liberation Army Navy plan, as it expands its blue water capabilities and seeks to project power further into the Indian Ocean. This improves China's strategic reach without the political baggage of a formal military base. Secondly, solidifying regional influence and counterbalancing US strategy. China seeks to establish a more Sino-centric regional order in Asia. Singapore, as a highly respected, economically powerful, and diplomatically savvy ASEAN member, is a crucial piece of this puzzle. Singapore's acceptance would be a major diplomatic coup, showcasing China's ability to forge deep partnerships even with nations traditionally seen as closer to the West. This could create a demonstration effect, potentially encouraging other ASEAN nations to consider closer ties with Beijing, thereby weakening the US-led alliance system in the Indo-Pacific. By deepening its relationship with Singapore, China could subtly challenge the effectiveness of multilateral security groupings like the Quad, US, Japan, India, Australia, and a UK-US, Australia, UK, US. Singapore, as a non-claimant in the South China Sea, yet a significant maritime power, would be a key player in shaping the regional security narrative. Thirdly, economic diversification and technological advancement. Despite its immense economic size, China still seeks to diversify its trade routes, access cutting-edge technology, and attract high-value foreign investment. Singapore's status as a global financial hub and its robust regulatory environment make it an ideal partner for China's efforts to internationalize the renminbi, RMB, and reduce its reliance on Western financial systems. Deepening financial ties could accelerate RMB's role in global trade and investment. Singapore's focus on innovation, research, and advanced manufacturing aligns perfectly with China's desire to move up the value chain and achieve technological self-sufficiency. Joint R&D, talent exchange, and investment in emerging technologies through Singapore could prove invaluable. As global supply chains face increasing geopolitical pressures, Singapore's highly efficient and diversified logistics network offers China an avenue to de-risk its supply chains and enhance resilience, especially for high-value goods. Finally, soft power and governance model validation. China often seeks to present its development model as a viable alternative to Western liberal democracy. Singapore, with its unique blend of authoritarian governance and economic prosperity, provides a compelling narrative. A close partnership with Singapore could be presented as validation of a Confucian capitalist model, showcasing how economic success can be achieved without necessarily adopting Western political systems. This strengthens China's soft power appeal to developing nations. However, accepting such an offer would also involve careful calculations for China. It could potentially provoke a stronger US reaction, raise concerns among its existing partners, and require significant diplomatic finesse to avoid alienating other Southeast Asian nations. The benefits, however, particularly regarding the Malacca Strait and regional influence, would likely far outweigh these risks for Beijing. If China were to accept Singapore's offer, the world would react almost instantly. The news would dominate headlines, and diplomatic cables would fly. Let's break down the immediate geopolitical reverberations. ASEAN prides itself on its non-alignment and consensus-based approach. Singapore, a founding and influential member, forging such a deep, formalized strategic partnership with China would severely test this unity. Nations like Vietnam and the Philippines, who have direct territorial disputes with China in the South China Sea, would likely view this with profound alarm and betrayal. They might accuse Singapore of abandoning ASEAN solidarity and aligning with an assertive power. Other ASEAN members, like Indonesia or Malaysia, might be forced to re-evaluate their own positions. Some might double down on diversification and engagement with other powers, e.g., the US, India, Japan, while others might consider a closer alignment with China, fearing isolation or seeking similar economic benefits. This could lead to a highly fragmented and unstable regional dynamic. While Singapore is not a claimant, its strategic importance means its closer alignment with China would implicitly strengthen Beijing's position. This could embolden China to be more assertive, knowing a key maritime player in the region is now deeply integrated into its strategic orbit. It could also lead to increased naval presence and military exercises by nations seeking to counter China's perceived growing influence. Regional trade and investment patterns would begin to adjust. Some nations might seek to reduce their economic reliance on China or diversify their supply chains away from a region seen as increasingly under Chinese influence. Others might actively seek Chinese investment through Singapore. Swift and decisive, the United States would undoubtedly view this as a significant setback to its Indo-Pacific strategy. Singapore has traditionally been a key security partner for the US, providing logistics support and acting as a vital hub for US naval presence. Washington would likely engage in intensive diplomatic efforts with both Singapore and other ASEAN nations, expressing deep concern and emphasizing the importance of a free and open Indo-Pacific. The US might review its military deployments in the region, potentially seeking to strengthen its presence in other allied nations, e.g., the Philippines, Australia, or exploring new security partnerships. While unlikely to immediately impose sanctions on Singapore given its economic importance, the US might re-evaluate trade agreements or investment flows with nations seen as aligning too closely with China. These nations, already wary of China's growing power, would express significant alarm. They would likely redouble their efforts to strengthen their own security partnerships, enhance maritime cooperation, and increase joint military exercises to demonstrate their commitment to regional stability and counter China's expanding influence. European nations, while geographically distant, would likely issue statements emphasizing adherence to international law, freedom of navigation, and the importance of multilateralism. They might also reassess their own economic engagement strategies in Southeast Asia. Initial reactions in global financial markets could be volatile, reflecting uncertainty about the future of global trade routes and geopolitical stability. The immediate tremors would eventually settle into profound, long-term shifts that could fundamentally reshape the international system. Let's delve into the deeper consequences. If Singapore's move is a harbinger of a broader trend, we could see the accelerated emergence of a more Sino-centric Asia. This doesn't imply Chinese hegemony, but rather a significant shift in the center of gravity, with Beijing wielding greater economic, political, and even security influence over the region. The traditional US-led security architecture, based on a hub-and-spokes model, would be significantly challenged. As geopolitical tensions intensify, companies would face increasing pressure to de-risk, or friend-shore, their supply chains. The deep China-Singapore partnership could lead to a bifurcation of supply chains, with some gravitating towards a China-led bloc and others aligning with the US and its allies. This could accelerate the trend towards regionalized supply chains, potentially leading to higher costs and less efficient global trade. The competition for technological supremacy is a defining feature of the 21st century. A deeper China-Singapore partnership, particularly in areas like AI, quantum computing, and advanced manufacturing, could accelerate the formation of distinct technological ecosystems. This might lead to divergent standards, intellectual property regimes, and even a splinternet with different digital norms and data flows. The Strait of Malacca, vital for global trade, would increasingly become a strategic choke point under the influence of China and Singapore. While both would ostensibly champion freedom of navigation, China's enhanced access could reshape maritime security paradigms. Other naval powers might increase their presence or seek alternative routes, like the Lombok Strait or the Sunda Strait, though these are less efficient. ASEAN, as a regional grouping, would face an existential crisis. Its ability to act as a unified, neutral bloc would be severely compromised. It might devolve into a more fragmented entity, with some members leaning heavily towards China and others forming closer ties with external powers, diminishing its overall influence on the global stage. With Singapore as a key financial partner, the internationalization of the renminbi would receive a significant boost. More trade would be denominated in RMB, and more international financial transactions would flow through Chinese financial institutions, gradually chipping away at the dominance of the US dollar. A closer partnership between a highly efficient, technocratic state like Singapore and an authoritarian superpower like China could strengthen the argument for alternative governance models, challenging the universal applicability of Western liberal democratic norms. This could resonate with developing nations seeking rapid economic growth without perceived political constraints. The perceived shift in the balance of power would likely accelerate military modernization efforts across the Indo-Pacific. Nations would invest more in naval capabilities, air power, and missile defense, potentially leading to an arms race as they seek to deter aggression or project their own power. For Singapore, a nation known for its meticulous strategic planning and risk aversion, making such a bold offer to China would not be undertaken lightly. This would be a deeply calculated risk, driven by compelling motivations. Singapore's economy is inextricably linked to global trade and investment. As China's economic gravity increases, Singapore might perceive a deepening partnership with Beijing as essential for its long-term economic survival and prosperity. This could include ensuring continued access to China's massive market. As China's middle class expands, Singapore could position itself as a key gateway for Chinese outbound tourism, services, and investment. Access to China's vast capital reserves and its rapidly advancing technology could fuel Singapore's growth in strategic sectors. Singapore might be hedging against a potential future where China becomes the dominant economic power, seeking to secure its position in that new order. Singapore has always practiced a delicate balancing act between major powers. However, if it perceives a fundamental shift in the global balance of power towards a more multipolar world with China as a dominant pole, then a deeper alignment with China might be seen as a necessary strategic hedge. While seemingly leaning towards China, Singapore might view this as diversifying its strategic partnerships, ensuring it is not overly reliant on any single power for its security and prosperity. By making itself indispensable to China's regional ambitions, Singapore could gain significant leverage in its dealings with both Beijing and other global powers. Singapore's long-term stability is tied to regional peace. It might believe that a deeply integrated partnership with China is the best way to manage regional tensions, particularly in the South China Sea, by giving China a greater stake in regional stability. For a small state, influencing global affairs often requires strategic alignment. By becoming China's most trusted partner in Southeast Asia, Singapore could gain unparalleled access and influence in Beijing, allowing it to subtly shape regional policies or advocate for its own interests more effectively. Singapore's commitment to becoming a smart nation and a global innovation hub could be further accelerated by deeper collaboration with China's vast technological ecosystem, particularly in areas like AI, 5G, and urban management solutions. Singapore's leadership is known for its long-term strategic vision. Such an offer might be part of a multi-decade plan to secure Singapore's relevance and prosperity in a rapidly changing global landscape. However, this move would not be without immense internal debate and external risks for Singapore. It would challenge its long-held principle of neutrality, potentially alienate its traditional partners, especially the US, and raise concerns about sovereignty and over-reliance on a single power. The perceived benefits would have to be extraordinary to justify such a monumental shift. While the scenario of China accepting Singapore's offer is compelling, it's crucial to acknowledge the significant counter-arguments and inherent challenges that would arise, potentially making the path far from smooth for both nations. The most significant risk for Singapore is the potential erosion of its cherished strategic autonomy. A deep partnership with a superpower like China, particularly one with a history of economic coercion, could lead to Singapore becoming overly dependent on Beijing's goodwill, limiting its ability to act independently on the world stage. Despite Singapore's sophistication, the sheer asymmetry in size and power between the two nations means Singapore would always be the junior partner. There's a risk of China dictating terms or expecting alignment on issues that might not be in Singapore's best long-term interest. Singapore's strong ties with the US, Europe, Japan, and other democracies would be severely strained. This could lead to a loss of valuable intelligence, defense cooperation, and economic opportunities from these traditional partners, potentially leaving Singapore more isolated in other areas. While Singapore has a tightly controlled political system, such a dramatic shift in foreign policy could generate unease among its population, particularly those concerned about Chinese influence or the erosion of Singapore's Western-leaning values. Singapore's reputation as a neutral, reliable, and rules-based international player could be tarnished, impacting its role as a global financial and diplomatic hub. China would face an even more aggressive and coordinated containment strategy from the United States and its allies. This could lead to increased military presence in the region, stronger economic pressure, and intensified diplomatic efforts to isolate China. While Singapore's partnership would be a win, it could simultaneously fuel suspicion and resentment among other ASEAN nations, making China's broader regional diplomacy more challenging. Nations like Vietnam, the Philippines, and even Indonesia might actively seek to bolster their own defenses or alliances to counterbalance China. The acceptance of such an offer would set a precedent. Other nations might demand similar levels of preferential treatment or investment, creating a complex web of expectations that China might struggle to manage. While Singapore is not a claimant, its closer ties might indirectly complicate China's relations with other claimants. China might be expected to show more flexibility on the South China Sea issue due to its closer ties with Singapore, or it might face accusations of hypocrisy if it doesn't. China's strengthened position could inadvertently create a security dilemma, prompting other powers to increase their military spending and alliances, leading to a more militarized and potentially unstable region. Operationalizing such a deep, multifaceted partnership would involve immense bureaucratic, legal, and logistical challenges, requiring significant coordination and trust building on both sides. The global landscape is constantly shifting. A strategic move that appears advantageous today could become a liability tomorrow due to unforeseen events, changes in leadership, or new technological breakthroughs. The heightened geopolitical tensions stemming from such a move could increase the risk of miscalculation by any of the major powers involved, potentially leading to unintended escalation. Therefore, while the offer and its acceptance might seem strategically brilliant on paper, the practical implementation and long-term consequences would be fraught with significant complexities and potential pitfalls for all parties involved. So, what happens next if China accepts Singapore's offer? The answer, as we've explored, is not a simple one. It would be a moment of profound geopolitical realignment, a testament to Singapore's strategic foresight, and a bold declaration of intent from Beijing. The world would be watching, holding its breath to see how this unprecedented partnership reshapes the very foundations of international relations. This hypothetical scenario underscores the dynamic and unpredictable nature of geopolitics in the 21st century. It forces us to reconsider long-held assumptions about alliances, regional dynamics, and the pursuit of national interests. While the exact contours of what happens next would be determined by countless variables, one thing is certain: the acceptance of such an offer would not be the end of the story, but merely the opening of a truly new, and potentially turbulent, chapter in the global power struggle. What are your predictions for a world where China and Singapore forge such a deep strategic partnership? Do you think this is a plausible scenario, or pure speculation? What other implications do you foresee? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear from you. If you found this deep dive into geopolitical possibilities insightful and thought-provoking, please hit that like button, share this video with anyone who's interested in global affairs, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis of the complex forces shaping our world. We release new videos every day of the week, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next fascinating discussion.